sort of big picture. We'll move toward more refined questions and more specific interests. But so just, not to put any pressure on you, but is America in decline? I mean, it's become sort of a cliche, from books called "Are We Rome?" or from newspaper columnists and pundits pontificating that we're a culture in decline. And so, a man who's steeped in history, I'd just love to know if America is in decline.
The answer is no. We've got huge problems today. If you just look at the problems, especially in the financial side, the situation is hopeless. In terms of spending, we've never had this kind of level of spending in peacetime, and it's even worse than the official numbers because it does not include the hundreds of billions that are going out to Fannie Mae and other wards of the government, a lot of other what we call in the private sector off-balance sheet spending by the government, obligations by the government. If you look at the unfunded liabilities of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, tens of trillions of dollars, massive national debt rising, states and municipalities, huge problems there. So in that sense, the world is coming to an end. However, this year, we are going to have a decent economy. We are going to grow 3 to 4% in real terms. Part of that's just a bounce back from the severity of the hit we took in late 2008 and early 2009, whether it's rebuilding inventories levels and the like, and on the Federal Reserve flooding the system with liquidity, we will get growth. The real question is, will this be sustainable? Will we have a repeat of the 1970s where you'd get growth and then you'd fall off again? Or will it be like the 1980s? From the early 1980s, we had over a 20-year run, 2 mild recessions, extraordinary growth here and around the world. And the things to watch out for, David, are one, the U.S. dollar. The biggest mistake, one of the biggest mistakes of the previous administration was their weak dollar policy. But you cannot have a weak dollar and a strong recovery. And unfortunately, this administration's continued the weak dollar. The Fed doesn't care about it, and that's a real dampener. It encourages speculation in currencies and commodities. It inhibits sound business investment. We should have learned it from the 1970s. But just think of it this way, because I know when you talk about dollar monetary policy, eyelids get very heavy. And I'm glad you came in from a break or something. I hope you have some coffee. There is no boring subject than monetary policy. As I think I've told some of you, just to give you a travel tip, if you ever find yourself in an airplane, in coach, middle seat, on the runway, watching your life pass away, and you want a little bit of elbow room, talk to your seatmates about monetary policy. You'll have all the room you want. But it is like an automobile. You can have a fine car, but if you don't have fuel, you don't move. Too much, you flood the engine. Right amount, you have a chance to move ahead. The Fed has been crashing the dollar. And by the way, just to understand this, and then we'll finish up. Think of it this way. What would your life be like if we did to clocks and watches, timepieces, what the U.S. government's been doing to the dollar? That is, you have 60 minutes an hour one day, 30 the next, 90 the next, 20 minutes the day after. You'd soon have to have hedges, derivatives, futures to figure out how many hours you're working. Or let's say the government came up with an idea that if they raised the number of minutes in an hour from 60 to 70 and not tell anyone, what would that do to productivity? People would be working longer, same pay, and, great. Well, people would start to notice they're working longer and not getting paid for it. Same is true of a currency. So watch what happens to the dollar. Don't look at the dollar against other currencies. That's like putting a 98-pound weakling against a 92-pound weakling. It's not Olympic weightlifting. Just look at the price of gold. That'll tell you where it's really doing. The other two big things to watch out for are taxes. Tax cuts of 2003 expire. A health care bill is embedded with a huge amount of taxes. Those are going to be huge dampeners if something's not done right there. And the big final thing, David, is bailouts and spending. We all read about Greece, Italy, Spain, Portugal. We got looming disasters here, California, Michigan, Illinois, this state, my home state of New Jersey. Numerous municipalities and cities are on the brink. They'll get it through this year probably by misusing TARP money to bail out places like California, but those are only short-term things. And what they mean is, if they don't get it right, is structural changes won't be made, and this spending has to be dealt with. But I'm an optimist, and the reason I'm an optimist is precisely those kind of we don't go off a cliff. And maybe we can discuss this, but I think if you look at the positive changes that can be made on the entitlements, we don't have to raise the retirement age to 97 in Social Security. We don't have to shoot everyone over the age of 65 to take care of Medicare. There are more positive things. So I think the major structural changes will start, and we'll do what we did in the early 80s. None of you are old enough to remember the 70s. Maybe David and I might. But the 70s were a dreadful decade, and that was followed by extraordinary 20-plus years. And I think we're going to be doing it again.
Just one other